Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to have a look at a nice W3 or Wave 3 trade setup that unfolded on the ES yesterday, which is May the 22nd, and also look at how that fits in with using the large degree trend on the higher time frame chart. But as usual, we start with our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades are actually taken, they're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Also remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. Put another way, all professional traders know and understand, but more importantly accept that losses can and will and do unfold. That's an important part to understand. There always will be losses when using any trading approach to the markets. Right, this is the ES on a 3-minute chart from yesterday, and I want to have a look first at putting our higher time frame resistance areas on. For you guys who've been following us for a while will know that we go to a higher time frame chart that's between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So this is a 3-minute chart, so I'd go out to the 15-minute chart. If you're say using a daily stock chart, you'd go out to the weekly. If you're say trading 15-minute forex, you'd go out to the hourly. And I want to scroll back to before yesterday even opened. And this is what I was looking at in yesterday's training webinar for MTPredictor customers as well. So we're looking at this at the time. What we did was went back to the previous pivot high. You can see I'm circling it here. We right mouse click, we do decision point, and can you see how that gave you an area of resistance? But more importantly, it was on the chart in advance. Even before yesterday even opened, that would have been up there on the chart in advance. If I turn training mode off, you can see what happened yesterday. The market went up, tagged that high before it started to decline quite sharply for the rest of the day. Point being is that was on the chart in advance. If we go down to the 3-minute chart, and this is what we were looking at in yesterday's webinar, can you see how that nailed the high of the day very nicely indeed? After this, basically the market made a decline, and as such it turned the large degree trend to be down. So this is what we look for. We look for markets to come out of a random phase. Again, for you guys who've been following us for a while will know that we believe that markets are basically random 50% of the time, and then clear and have nice clear clean patterns about 50% of the time. And this is why most black box mechanical systems don't work, because basically markets have a half the time as being basically just random. So we look for markets making a meaningful support a meaning reversal at higher time frame support and resistance, which is exactly what it did here. Our MTP trend went grey to show you that the market was in the process of reversing. It then turned red to show you that the trend was down for the rest of the day. So the market then declined off this high. It then came up and made a TS1 W3 trade. There was actually a history triangle here, so this would have been the first point where there would have been a potential trade setup. Can you see how the next bar, it would have taken the high out first, and this would probably have invalidated this particular trade setup. So it means you'd have placed the analysis on the next bar, which would have been this one here. So if I now zoom out, you can see this is where the projected target would have been, down at the typical Wave 3 WPT. Why is it this particular target zone? Well, it's this particular target zone because a Wave 3 or W3 trade setup is assuming that this correction here is a Wave 2. In other words, we start our Elliott Wave sequence. Remember, MTPredictor uses my unique isolation approach to Elliott Wave. Again, because the markets are only predictable about 50% of the time, I don't believe that you can place an Elliott Wave count on the chart 100% of the time. That's why we start our wave counts when the market is making meaningful support and resistance at higher time frame DPs. In other words, the pattern starts to become clear. So the sequence will start here. The initial move down to be Wave 1. The initial correction, which in Elliott Wave terms normally subdivides into an ABC. That's the typical minor pattern, or the most common minor pattern in a Wave 2 correction. So this would be a Wave 2. If this is a Wave 2, we're anticipating a strong Wave 3 swing after that. That's why our target is at the typical Wave 3 WPT. Why do we like this? Because Wave 3s are typically the strongest and longest in a completed 5-wave sequence, therefore represent the largest potential profit for the smallest initial risk. Remember, we use position sizing to keep our initial risk small and under control. I'm just going to go back to the default account there, where we look to take less than 2% risk on a sample $20,000 account. So that would be risking less than $400. The market did chop sideways for a while before rolling over and then making a decline late in the afternoon to reach our typical Wave 3 WPT target. At that point in time, approximately, can I call it 6R? 5.9, is that close enough to 6? Where potentially approximately plus 6R profit was available. Let's also put the higher time frame targets on. Again, we use the higher time frame 15-minute chart. This would have been the last swing into the high. Therefore, this would have been the last pivot low. So again, we right mouse click, do DP. I don't need to do it again, but just remind you that this would have been on the chart in advance. And when you come down to the 3-minute chart, can you see how that was basically in the same area as our typical Wave 3 WPT target? So basically the whole lot made sense. In other words, the market came into 15-minute DP resistance, basically declined for the rest of the day, hitting the large degree support zone. So the result was a very nice potential 6R profit. There was also an opportunity to pyramid. If you're a more experienced trader, you can see there was a history triangle here when the market got back up to the original entry level. If I right mouse click over this history triangle, do the analysis, you can see this actually was a potential TS4 sell. There's no reason to want to come out to the first target. You'd probably want to then trail down into your higher time frame DP support zone, and again that would have been an additional 6.7R profit as well. The only criteria I suggest is if you are looking to pyramid and you do enter a second trade like this to add more contracts in the original direction, is you bring your stop on your original trade to break even. In other words, you don't add additional risk by pyramiding. If you'd have done that, that would have added an extra 6.7 profit as well. But most of you, I'm guessing, would have been still short off this first one and just left it at that. So hopefully this has been a good example of, again, using MTPredictor and our isolation approach to Elliott Wave, and in particular our new W3 or Wave 3 trade setup that's in our MTPredictor 8, which is our standalone version, which we've got here. We have the same trade setup in our NinjaTrader 7 and NinjaTrader 8 add-ons as well. But the point being is that we only wait till the market becomes clear. We understand that the markets are random about half the time, and they are clear about half the time. To understand when the markets are becoming clear, we look to the higher time frame support and resistance, then see if the time frame we are trading off makes a meaningful reversal at this higher time frame support and resistance. In this case, the 15-minute DP there actually nailing the high of the day nicely. We then got an initial decline down, an initial correction up, subdividing into a minor ABC. This would be considered a Wave 2. That's why the software found this as a TS1, W3 or Wave 3 trade setup. The trade was then into the typical Wave 3 WPT for a nice almost 6R profit. So a good example of MTPredictor in action on the ES yesterday, which was May the 22nd.